The South African government has received a big blow on its decision to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. The North Gauteng High Court has ruled the withdrawal as unconstitutional, irrational and procedurally flawed. The Democratic Alliance had objected to withdrawal from the ICC and took the matter to court. The party argued that Justice Minister Mike Masuta unlawfully bypassed Parliament when he withdrew South Africa from the ICC. Masuta therefore did not act in line with the Constitution. South Africa has joined several other African countries planning to withdraw from the ICC. They say that the court is biased against the continent.
You need to understand that we have domesticated the law, our participation in the ICC. So effectively what the court is saying is that you cannot ignore that you have a law that guides you in terms of your own activities. And that's a law that you yourself have actually put. So until such time that you reviewed that law, government is not expected that it will undermine the laws of this country. So the activity by South Africa is considered to be unconstitutional. But what the court does not seem to be saying, it does not say you cannot withdraw. It simply says that there is a process that needs to be followed if you want to take that course of action.
It was not unexpected. I think a lot of the commentary immediately after the South African executive notified of its withdrawal was actually that the due process was not followed, and also that there was a need for the decision to reflect what South African people actually want. And so hearing it from the High Court in many ways is a confirmation of what people had been saying, that if the South African executive wants to withdraw from the Rome Statute, it cannot do so unilaterally. It must go through the proper processes, because following an incorrect process, for example, sets a bad precedent.
This brings clarity to the matter that the courts have a role, and it's a triple democracy that the courts have pronounced that South Africa acted unconstitutionally, and therefore that decision is invalid. And it therefore makes clear that the international obligations under the Rome Statute, which is the ICC framework that South Africa had, remain and should be fulfilled. And what is important now for the government of South Africa is to comply with the judgment and follow through and ensure that it acts in accordance with the law as pronounced by the High Court today.
Constitutional law expert Marius Avicius joins us on the phone line. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us on ANN7. Now, the court has declared ICC withdrawal unconstitutional. What is the immediate implications of this verdict?
Well, you see, the Rome Convention has got very strict requirements for a withdrawal, and that's one thing. But on the other hand, that convention has been incorporated into South African law. So if you don't comply with the withdrawal requirements or notification of, making it, there are quite a few requirements. These requirements are not only situated or in the Rome Convention, they are now part and parcel of our law. So government has to comply with its own laws. That is one of the basic tenets of our Constitution, to uphold the rule of law. So if they're not happy with these conditions and these requirements, they have to change it by an act of Parliament. They'll have to go back to court, and that's exactly what the court decided. It's something that government cannot unilaterally decide. It's got to be in accordance with the convention, and what is more, with our own law, our own act of Parliament.
Now, the government has already started the process of withdrawing from the ICC. Will this be a loss of face internationally for South Africa now to stop the process?
Certainly. But it will be a loss of reputation and anything, but at least it will confirm the principle of the rule of law, which is basic to our Constitution. So, yes, it would be a loss of face because they acted unilaterally, they didn't follow the law, but it is a victory for the rule of law.
Well, thank you so much to constitutional law expert Marius Witches joining me there on the phone line. Well, chairperson of the DA's federal executive, James Self, joins us also on the phone line. A very good morning to you, sir. Now, the court has declared the ICC withdrawal unconstitutional. The immediate implications of this verdict on South Africa?
Well, I think it has suffered a foreign policy blow in the sense that there's doubtless going to be a degree of embarrassment in the fact that they have to revoke the notice of withdrawal. But I do think that this gives the South African government the opportunity to rethink it. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction taken in October last year. I think that the court found that that was irrational and therefore unconstitutional as well. And it just creates a little bit of breathing space for the government to reconsider the wisdom of leaving the International Criminal Court.
And the key reasons why South Africa and a few other African nations chose to withdraw from the ICC was a perception that the body has a bias against the continent. Do you believe that ICC is likely to address such concerns?
Yes. Well, I think that it's only South Africa and Burundi who have thus indicated. Gambia has now indicated it's going to stay in the International Criminal Court. But to the extent that there is a bias and the ICC denies it, that needs to be dealt with in terms of structural reform. The institution isn't per se flawed simply because of that perception. And certainly South Africa, I would have thought, does not want to find itself in the company of pariah states who harbor war criminals and perpetrators of genocide.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on the phone line there, chairperson of the DA's federal executive, James Self, for giving us his input on the North Gauteng High Court's decision to determine this unconstitutional, the withdrawal from the ICC.